What if the greatest treasures in history were never really lost, just hidden? What secrets has history been keeping from us? I'm Ryan, and this is the NINC channel, where we talk about the craft and business of writing fiction. Somewhere between the history books and the stuff they never taught us in school, novelist Ernest Dempsey found his stories. He's the best-selling author of the Sean Wyatt, Dak Harper, and Gideon Wolf series of archaeological and action-adventure thrillers. In today's NINC chat, Ernest teaches us how to transform real historical mysteries into high-stakes adventures, and how to blend facts and fiction to create the kind of globe-trotting thrillers that keep readers turning the pages. If you want to learn more about how to unearth historical threads that can spark a great novel, then this is the video for you.
While Novelists Inc., NINC, strives to provide accurate and helpful information, NINC does not assume any liability for or endorse any opinions, advice, instructions, products, errors, or omissions in the following video. Viewers are solely responsible for how they interpret and apply any NINC content.
Welcome. It's so good to see you, Ernest Dempsey, author of, historical fiction. So tell me a little bit about the historical elements that are present in your books and basically the research that goes into those. Just give me a little bit of a quick pitch.
Yeah, so usually there's a MacGuffin that's some sort of an artifact or something that needs to be found, and my characters try to go find it before the bad guys do. As far as the research is concerned, it's pretty straightforward. I find whatever that MacGuffin is that I'm going to build the story around, and then I just start diving in. So with research, it used to be that there was about 100 hours of research for, or it was about an hour of research for every 1,000 words, so about 100 hours of research for each book. But with AI, that's sped up, so I've been able to cut that down significantly and get to the writing faster. So that's good. But you have to fact check AI, so that slows it down a little bit. It's still a lot faster than it was before. As far as like other types of research, a lot of the things that I do are based on like conversations I've had with people from the past. One of the most interesting ones was with a German woman that I met in high school when I was getting my brakes done and she was getting her brakes done. And we started talking, and I found out that she was a German survivor of the Holocaust. So it's sort of an unknown story, right? Where people that weren't Jewish but were Germans but were against the Nazis, like they had their own special treatment for those folks. And so things like that. And then I've visited some places too. This last year I got to visit like 4 locations, which was really cool. But it's not typical. So usually my research is online or in books and stuff like that.
What are some of your go-to resources? Like what kind of sources do you like best? Like obscure papers, or is it, does AI find it for you now? Or do you just sort of think, all right, I want a chalice or something? And tell me about your process.
So in the old days, back when I was first getting started in like 2008, 2009, writing my first novel, it was a lot of like online, like Google searches online for things. Typically I would search for artifact, like lost artifacts or lost civilizations, or different kinds of searches of that nature that people hadn't found usually. If they're already found, then there's no mystery to it, right? So that was how I did it before. Um, the first book I wrote, though, I actually had the idea. The idea for the story came first, and then there was this mystery, and it's like an hour away from here in North Georgia, and there's this archaeological site that it's an old wall that's there, and nobody knows why it's there, and there's a placard there with different like theories about it or hypotheses about it, but no one knows for sure. And so I came up with my own, like while I was standing there, and I was like, okay, so what if this connects to this? And oh, what if it connects all the way back to this? So then I got to thinking, okay, well, I've got to create the characters, the hero's journey, like all this different stuff, for this story and the character arcs and all that. And so that was how the first one came about. And then the research came, for all the different locations, for different possibilities. That was all online. There were some books that I read, as like supplementary. Very often now the books are supplementary. What got me interested in this genre and doing history based and archaeology based stuff for fiction was a book that my grandfather had about the seven ancient wonders of the world. And he also had a book about lost treasures that were out there, right? From like everything from
Mhm.
like Old West outlaws to ancient stuff like El Dorado. And so those kind of sparked my interest in this, along with the great movies like Goonies and Indiana Jones and stuff like that. So um, I just sometimes I take a location and I find like what interesting story is there about this place, right? Like is there something mysterious about this place? Did something happen about this place or at this place? And so that actually makes it a lot easier now. So what I do very often is pick a location and then I'll go into like Chat GPT and do some searches about it. If there's nothing there, then I'll go on to the next one. So that's kind of the process now, and it's changed over time, and I'm sure it'll change again. But that's kind of how I do it.
So, how do you decide where historical accuracy sort of ends and creative licensing begins? Like, how do you blend those details to give your readers that fiction that they want that still has a base in reality?
Yeah, so with the present day fiction, it's really easy. I try to keep things as realistic as possible. There's always an element of something supernatural or paranormal involved. So, like with Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Hmm.
The supernatural power of the Ark. Temple of Doom, same way. It was like Goonies was just a treasure hunt, but
Hmm.
those other movies, they have something more powerful at play. I do that with the understanding that I do a lot of study into quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and so I understand that all things are actually possible and beyond the Newtonian sciences that we've based everything on in the past. So for that, it's easy. For the past stuff, so like prologues and things that may have happened a long time ago, well, that's also easy because we don't actually know, other than like documented conversations or recorded chronicles or records that we have from those time periods about those people. Other than that, it's wide open and you can just speculate and just you try to keep it as real as possible. But history is a funny thing. We study the rulers, we study the generals, and we study the movers and shakers, but no one knows about the blacksmith from like 752 AD in the city of York, England, right? Like nobody knows about that guy. Nobody knows about the chef or the bread maker or so there's tons of things. There's tons of people that you can speculate about with what happened with them, how they would have reacted to things. And beyond that, even the movers and the shakers, not everything they said was recorded, right? So and a lot of stuff was changed and polished to make them look better or in some cases make them look worse. So there's still a lot of gray area to play with in there, and that's what I do. I like to play in that area.
Do you ever worry about like misleading your readers, or do you just trust them to understand that this is fiction and you have to suspend a little disbelief at times?
I try not to suspend um, belief sometimes, but I try not to do that because so the most glaring example in stories is like a hero, and it's in movies too. Like a hero falls and they grab onto something. So like Harry Potter falls out of the flying car and he grabs onto the door handle and he's hanging on with one arm, right?
Right.
Like go to a pull-up bar. I do pull-ups like every day. But I can't do one arm pull-ups, but like you hold on for more than 5 seconds and see what happens. Like, can
Yeah.
you? right? And then there'll be scenes where people are like holding on to another person. They're holding them and they're holding on with one arm. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you couldn't do that for more than a half second. So I avoid stuff like that. Um, as far as the like the fictional elements, like in the Templar Curse, for example, where the true location of the Ark of the Covenant is, right? Um, it's entirely plausible to me, right? Now people can criticize that and say that's the dumbest thing. You're really taking a big leap there. Okay, yes, I am taking a big leap, but you aren't taking a leap. Like, show me where it is, right? Like, sooner or later, there's a gap in information, and you have to like you follow the breadcrumbs to a jumping point, right? And then you have to make a decision which way you're going to jump. And sometimes it seems like a leap of faith, but the reality is my guess is as good as anybody else's. And so I think most of the readers, while they do suspend a certain element of belief for certain things that I say, they're okay with that because readers aren't there for just facts, right? If they wanted just facts, they would just do life, right? And we're already doing life. So
Yeah. That's why we're reading books to escape from life.
that's
You
exactly
know,
right. Yeah,
I mean
yeah.
that's what makes it fun. So have you ever discovered something so strange or compelling in your research that you're like, wait, I have to tone this down, or that you're like, I have to throw this in?
Yeah, so I mean, every Sean Wyatt story I've written and some of the other stories too, some of those like the Gideon Wolf stories have more more speculative artifacts, more speculative things. It's more of a paranormal mythology series, shapeshifter series. And the guy happens to be an archaeologist. So with the other stories, though, especially in the Sean Wyatt series, almost every book I've written in that has at the research phase, and the phase is ongoing, by the way. So like I do research at the beginning and then I'm ongoing. It's like when I'm in this part of Act One, I have to look this up and learn more about this. And so I'm back and forth writing and reading. But every single one of those stories, I've discovered something shocking that I felt like was just like, why was this left out? I can't believe that we don't know. Like, how is no one talking about this? So the number one thing that I found when the first story I wrote, that I jumped out of my chair. I was in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I'm sitting at a desk looking at this computer and I'm doing this research for the Secret of the Stones. And the concept was that ancient Egyptians came to America and they brought big boats over here. And there's plenty of evidence that has been covered up um, and erased and whatever, and there's still some around if you're willing to open your mind and look at it, that this actually happened, right? And so I used this archaeological site as this jumping off point, like an hour from here, and it's called Fort Mountain. And what I did was took an aerial shot of from the internet of the wall, and it's this long serpentine looking wall. It doesn't enclose. It's not military and nobody knows what it's there for. And so as I'm connecting the dots here and like taking a big jump, thinking, well, maybe Egyptians put it there, which seems ludicrous. I was on a lark. I go visit like I don't know, I think it was the British Museum of Egyptology's website or something like that. And it was back in the day of flash pages. And so the screen starts black and then it like this thing starts coming down the screen, this line, and it's like making this like wiggly line all the way to the bottom until something blooms and it's the delta at the the bottom of the Nile. And I was like, wait a minute.
Mm.
So I took a screenshot of that and then I pulled up the aerial shot and rotated it and it looked exactly the same, right? Like if you had overlapped it, it would have been almost the
Mhm.
same. And like I jumped out of my chair. I said to the computer monitor, there's no freaking way that's real because I'm just making this up.
Mhm.
At the same time, now I Now I understand and believe, look, we're all tapped into the universal consciousness and there's shared information there. And sometimes it's given to us. And if we do something with it, then great. And if not, it'll be given to somebody else. So it's less shocking when you put it into that kind of a box, but it was like goosebumps and freaking out
Oh,
for
I
me at
bet.
least. So,
I,
and there's so many that are like that. There's just so many things that I look at it and I find the missing piece and I'm like, there's no way. That's just crazy. So,
no, I mean, I love it. I think that that's what brings, readers joy when they're reading books is when they find those things, and it's just like it expands your mind and it makes you think, and you actually get, more of an experience out of it than if you would sit and just, watch something. So, let's talk a little bit about the craft. How do you weave in the research without really slowing the pace? Like if someone is like, I'm a new writer starting wanting to do this, I mean, what's one of those techniques to make sure you don't end up with those info dumps?
oh, for info dumps. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
how do you avoid those where it's just like suddenly you've got 3 pages of, here's some history and oh now my character will go do something.
yeah, you go into documentary mode.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so there's a delicate balance to that, I guess. I probably did do some info dumps in my earliest books because I just didn't know any better. I never took a creative writing class. I didn't have like a mentor or anything. So I just read other books in this genre and then I was a big fan of them. And so yeah, I can do that. So that's what ended up happening. But for me now, I am aware of info dumps. And so I try to protect against that by making it part of natural conversations that happen in the story, natural discovery flow. So as something is learned by the characters, it reveals this and then reveals the possibility of something else. And usually it's handled in dialogue very often. So uh, you don't want it to just be a bunch of paragraphs like you're what's his name, Attenborough, and you're just like talking about, the there it is, the ancient Ark of the Covenant. It was used by the Israelites, and you don't want to do that. So
No.
I think, yeah, I try to do a better job now of like working it in naturally, usually to conversations.
Do you sometimes find material that you're like, oh, I would love to put this in, but I can't fit it, or maybe I'll use it later? Or what do you sometimes have too much material? How do you figure out how much to put in and what to leave out?
No, I actually don't really have that problem. It's there's always just what I need, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, I can go down lots of rabbit holes. I have pretty bad ADHD, so it's easy for me to, when I'm in the research mode, like to just go deeper and deeper, and then there's another hole and I go into that. That is trickier than anything else for me because I could spend hours like learning new
Mhm.
things. But as far as like having too much that I've got to like call from the story, that doesn't really, I don't have a problem with that.
So, speaking again on craft, how do you keep everything straight? Do you have like a series Bible, a system for tracking like continuity across like, or is it just you wing it? I mean,
That would make things a lot easier. So everything's in my head,
okay.
and people are kind of astounded at that when I tell them that because I like the Sean Wyatt series has 25 books in it, right?
Hmm.
Plus spin-offs.
Right.
And Dak Harper has 6 or 7 stories. Will be an eighth one this year. So I have started like I have asked my editor, my primary editor, to sort of keep track of things in a Bible context, like in that sort of like Bible idea that you suggested. Sometimes I have to go back and ask him or one of the other editors, like, hey, remind me on this story just to make sure we're keeping the flow. But usually it's not a problem. Usually I can just pick it right up because I know the general thrust of what happened in the previous story. And really, if you're writing your stories based on your characters' journeys, Your character, like if it's a 50 book series, right, and you've got the character's journey from here to here,
Mhm.
you kind of just naturally know where you are in that. And that's what really matters. Like the little details about what happened in the last book of, what they found and all that. You don't have to reference all of that stuff very often. It's usually just make sure you're focusing on your character's development over the course of time, and that kind of handles itself.
That's a great answer. I can't even remember sometimes like I change their eye color like from one book to the next. I'm just like, whoops.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean that stuff's all in my head and that's easy for me, but there are things like sometimes there are things that I've got to look back at, but it's not usually stuff
Yeah.
like that.
I have discovered that I put some of my work in AI and it'll spit it out and give me a complete character Bible. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness, because, for me, it's a little bit different. I don't have the same character in every book, even when I'm doing a series, they change around a little.
Mm, mm.
So I'm like, what did she look like again? How old was she? Mhm.
Right.
So I'm glad I'm keeping it up in your head. So what advice would you give authors who'd want to write in the genre that you're doing? Like those that, what should they do first? Those that are starting out, that are watching this, kind of thinking, okay, sort of like where you are, I can do this maybe, you know, want to have those stories coming around or they saw something that sparked an idea.
So Kevin Tumlinson and Nick Thacker and I always used to joke that we were all the same guy writing the same stories and just changing the variables, right? Like just changing the characters. Our character names are different, obviously, but it eventually you don't run out of mysteries because there's more to find. But as far as the big ones are concerned, that are the low-hanging fruit, everybody's written a Grail story. Everybody's written an Ark of the Covenant story. Lots of us have done Spear of Destiny stuff, all that. So if you're interested in getting into this genre, and I think that this genre is tired, like you can see it with the sales numbers, you can see it with the number of subscribers decreasing. Um, and it's partly due to saturation, but I think also there's reader fatigue because it is a lot of the same kind of concept, storytelling, flow, and all that. So if you're wanting to get into this genre, you need to challenge yourself to find your unique selling proposition. What is going to make your characters different than everybody else's? What's going to make your storytelling different than everybody else's? You can't come in and try to be the next Clive Cussler, right? You can't come in and try to be the next Dan Brown. You have to be the next you. And that's the thing where I think a lot of people in my genre fail is they try to emulate so and so. And while that person, Cussler's books sold, millions and millions of copies, and Brown and Rollins and all those guys and Barry, they do really, really well. They all have their unique style, and I think that the trap that a lot of indies fall into is they don't develop their own unique style. And I think one of the things that's kind of saved me a little bit is that I do have sort of a unique style of and a unique take on these things. I think Matt James is really good with that too. And he's in my genre. Um, Kevin obviously is really good. Nick's really good. Andrew Clausen's really good. There's a bunch. I don't want to leave anybody out. Dave Behrens, but um, everybody who has sort of a unique voice, that's the most important thing. Is you can write in the same genre as other people, but you have to have that unique voice. So like, what's her name? Frida McFadden, right? She's been super hot for like the last couple of years, right? And she's not the best writer in the world. Like I've read some of her stuff, and sorry, Frida, I'm not the best writer in the world either. But you don't have to be. You just have to have a unique way of telling a story. And I think she does have a unique way of telling a story, and it hits the right notes with the right people, and it took off like a viral video,
Mhm.
right? So if you can find that, if you can find your unique voice, your unique selling proposition, what makes you different as an author, and what makes your storytelling different and your characters different, then I think you've got something.
I think that's an important point that you just brought up because a lot of authors, especially newer authors, get this idea of imposter syndrome. And it really isn't about
Mhm.
being an imposter, it's about being yourself because that's
Mhm.
what the readers connect to. And sometimes, newbie authors are so worried that it has to be perfect, 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 and every single word. And the readers really just want, like you said, a really great tale that they can latch onto, lose themselves in, and fall in love with the character in a sense. Not that
Yeah,
romantic love like I write per se, but that idea of just we want to go on this ride with this character to see how things turn out. And I think that that becomes
yeah.
real important.
There's no perfect way to tell a story, right? There is no
Mhm.
right way to tell a story. There's markers that you look for, there's indications that you look for in other work, but the reality is, like I said, Frida's not the best writer in the world. She is the best writer in the world in her reality, right?
Mhm.
And I'm the best in my reality, and you're the best in yours. So this plays to the imposter syndrome comment, right? And somebody told me this a while back, and I've shared it with other people several times. Imposters don't get imposter syndrome, right? Told this to my brother who like has like high level meetings with his company and felt like he didn't belong in the boardroom, right? And I'm like, but you're in the boardroom, and that means you do belong there,
Mhm.
right? And I said, imposters don't get imposter syndrome. The people that are cocky and think they've got it all figured out and that they're just, the king or queen of the world, those are the ones that are in trouble, right? The ones that are questioning things, then you're in the right place. And never lose that because it gives you your edge, right? But that doesn't mean you're an imposter. It means that you're trying to make the best story that you can make.
So what is coming out from you this year? What books are readers going to be looking for as we start to wrap up here?
Okay. So I have an experimental story coming out next month called The Bartender. That'll be out in March. I have Sean Wyatt 26 coming out this year, Dak Harper number 7 or 8. Gideon Wolf will be the next story. That's actually I'm already working on it. That should be out in May. So Gideon Wolf in May, right? Yeah, May. End of July will be Dak Harper or Sean Wyatt. I have a new book that I'm working on with the guys from the YouTube channel Grim Hustle that's coming out. It's called Grim Reckoning. That series begins in August. Then Sean Wyatt or Dak in September. I'll take a little bit of a break and put out a short story for Halloween, and then one more book for Black Friday. So it's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. It's busy, but hey, busy is good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd
Busy.
rather be busy with a margarita on the beach, but this is the way right now is production. So
So is there anything else you want to tell me before we end this
I feel
about
like you're le
about
feel like you're
anything
le
for like
I,
the for your YouTube audience here that's going to watch this?
oh, I thought you wanted me to say I love you or something.
Oh,
So is there
no.
anything
Next
else you
time.
want to say to me? Aren't other people watching this, Michelle?
Yeah, they are.
Um, no, you know what? I think right now in the indie world, there's a lot of people questioning themselves. They're questioning the business. They're questioning Amazon. They're questioning direct sales. They're questioning their advertising strategies. There's a lot of things that people are having doubts about. Um, and there's some people, but what I always say is like, there are also for every, 10 of us, that might be struggling, there's 10 people crushing it, right?
Mhm.
And very often we try to adapt to the market by changing our ads, right? Or changing, like our social media strategy or whatever. And the reality of it is that maybe you need to tell a different kind of story. It doesn't mean you have to pivot out of your genre. It just means that maybe you need to try a different way to really speak to the hearts and minds of readers. Because, like Kevin Tumlinson and I were talking about this recently, and he's working on a new project. And we were talking about like our genre and how things have been a little slower since 2020. And his theory, Kevin, if you're watching this, I'm sorry if I wasn't supposed to share it, but his theory was that um, because of the pandemic, because of all the political divisiveness, because of the anger that's on both sides of the aisle, right? Everything's politicized now, right? Or it's always about a social thing, or it's always about this. With all of that going on, it seems like readers want um, less violence in stories, less conspiracy in stories, less because it's happening in real life, right? Like a lot of things,
Mhm.
like a lot of crazy
Right.
things are happening. It's becoming almost fictional in our realities, right? And so his thought was, maybe stories need to take a different angle, at least in our genre, and bring more light into the world, right? Bring more hope into the world. And it doesn't mean you have to sit down and write an inspirational story. I did do that with The Final Round, which is a golf novel I wrote, a year and a half ago, and probably the best story I've ever written, right? It's way out of my lane.
Mhm.
But I felt the need to share something like that, right? So if I'm feeling it, then the readers are certainly feeling it. And so it doesn't mean you jump lanes and switch genres or anything like that necessarily. You can, but I would say that take it into consideration of what the pulse of the world is right now. And what do readers want as their escape? And what was their escape before might not be their escape right now. And so maybe I need to change the way I tell my Sean Wyatt stories just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So
No, I think
because
I think those are good points. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like think about like all the the news about the Epstein list and all that stuff, right? Like there's now, first of all of my conspiracies are being proven true, which is also hilarious. But like it's nobody wants them to be true. Like nobody wants a lot of these dark conspiracies to be true. So the last thing they want to read is a book about more dark conspiracies that might actually be proven true. So I think that like steering away from that sort of stuff, at least in my genre, is probably a good idea right now. And I'm definitely slightly pivoting a little bit with that.
Thank you so much for joining me on this interview for Novelists Inc. I appreciate it.
Ryan here again. I do a lot of historical research for my writing, and I found that very interesting. I hope you did too. And if you did, please remember to like and subscribe. This is a brand new channel, and your feedback helps more people find us. If you'd like to know more about Novelists Inc. or Ernest Dempsey, we've put the links in the description below. Until next week, happy writing, everyone.